Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Caden's independent media production. Today, we're talking about tom head intervals, top and bottom, higher batter versus higher reso, what to do with those things, how they sound, and we're going to demo some of that for you. It's come up in conversation and comments and some other places that generally with modern music people think of tuning their toms with the batter looser or at a lower tension than the reso. This results in a nice round sound and a lot of tone, things like that. I actually have a lot of contexts, and a lot of my friends do this too, where we like to invert that and have the batter a little bit tighter, sometimes a lot tighter, just purely from a sound perspective, but also from what it feels like to hit it, because more tension on the part that you're hitting is going to behave differently, it's going to inspire you differently, but there's some kind of interesting things that come along with this. Thank you so much to Skillshare, the online learning community teaching thousands of people a day from thousands of courses, for helping us to make this episode today. Skillshare is an online learning community comprising subject matter from UX design to music to graphic design to photography, and you can basically learn anything under the sun when you join up with them. The first 1,000 people to click the link below will get a free trial of the Skillshare Premium membership. You'll get access to everything they have. You can check out every class and find something that really excites you. If you choose to continue after the trial, it's less than $10 a month for an annual subscription. I grew up around photography. My dad's a photographer, and a lot of people who comment on our show here are amazed at the look and the feel and the tone of what everything looks like here. And this is born of the lighting scheme, not just the photography and the videography, but how we actually light this place. The course, Lighting Fundamentals, Making Lighting for Photography Easy with Finn Badgley, is a perfect example of this. It's just addressing a single topic, super clear, super in-depth, and by the end of it, you'll understand how we make things look like they look here, and you can really improve your own content. In addition to the pre-designed classes that they also have live ones where you can interact with the instructor in real time and get questions answered and have it feel a little more like a kind of traditional education experience, which is super duper cool. I'm really excited about that. So please follow the link below. Get your free trial, check out everything they have to offer, and find the things that work for you. The main thing that I want to address, which really hadn't occurred to me till recently when we were having these conversations here, is that if you tune the drum, say with the top at a given tension and the bottom a little bit tighter, and you hit it and it makes a note, if you flip the drum over and hit the other side, it actually makes the same note, because the note you're hearing, or the tone that you're hearing, is a combination of the two heads working together to make that sound. So physics basically tells us that it has to be the same note that's going to come out, because it's the same two membranes vibrating on the same tube with this collective tension between the two of them. What that means is that, say I set this drum up and it makes me happy with the bottom head tuned a little bit higher, and I like how it feels, but maybe I want a little more articulation, or maybe I'm playing quieter and I want to play fast stuff quieter. What if I just invert the tensions? What if the top is the exact same interval, but it's just inverted? And the way we're going to do it today is we're actually just going to flip the drum over. In order to make this as easy as possible for ourselves and also for you, the viewer, to understand and see, what we did is we took the Pearl tom that we have here, it's a 9x12, and we took off the Omni mount. So it's just sitting on a snare basket, but thanks to our friends over at Booty Shakers, we have the little baby Booty Shakers on the snare stand, so we're really not losing any resonance. It sounds the same as it does on the Omni mount, but this allows us to just flip it over and play the other side. We also, for experimental purposes, we're doing clear G1 batters on both sides. Now, a clear G1 is a common reso head for toms, so that's not that weird. And I tend toward coated heads, so if you're a coated head person too, you can imagine this scenario, but with a little more overtone suppression. But this is sort of a clinical trial. We want to make sure that it's really, really clear, and so it's time to kind of dive in. Since this is kind of a clinical thing, I'm going to give you more information than I normally do. What we're doing here is we're tuning these to notes because I want to know what the interval is. So I went ahead, I used my strobe tuner app on my home from Peterson, and I tuned the batter to a G, and I tuned the reso to a B. That's a major third, G to B. So we're starting out with the reso higher than the batter. Nice rack tom. Nothing too crazy going on there. Since it's all clear heads, there's a fair amount of overtones, bright, shiny. Sounds great. Now, we're going to change nothing. We're just going to turn it over. And as you'll see and hear, it's the same note, but the character is completely different. Now for this, for me, like if I was doing this kind of tuning, I would choose heads accordingly and everything, but basically the first thing that you notice is that it kind of sounds like it's been EQ'd. The low end, the mids, the highs, they're all different, but the note is the same. Now, if you are like me, who I'm a person who tends toward similar notes with a 12 or a 16 for most of the music that I play, this thing of just inverting the tensions is a great way to get to a different feel while staying in the same pitch range that you like from your kit. Now, depending on the range you're tuning your drum overall, the overall tension of both of the heads, you can get a lot of different things to happen when you think this way about like tighter batters versus tighter resos and all of that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump up, and now we're going to go with an A on the batter and a D above that. That's a perfect fourth, and the whole thing is coming up a little bit from where the last one was of the G over the higher B. Sounds like we tuned the tom higher. It's got the sort of traditional sound to it of the higher reso. The interval is a little bit wider, so there's a little bit different of a behavior between the heads. And now we're going to do the same thing, just flip it right over. Now this is starting to choke and kind of box out a little bit. It's getting into timbale country, but that's not necessarily a bad thing if you need to get a sound like this and all you have is the toms from your kit. If we use this same tuning scheme, but the other way around as we had a minute ago with the higher reso side, it still sounds like a tom, and this takes us into a different sort of more Latin percussion or maybe some kind of like, I don't know, just getting away from drum set sounds. When you play a drum where the resonant side is tuned higher than the batter, a lot of the tone you're getting when you strike the batter side is basically reflection and resonance coming back to you from the reso. When we switch this and have the batter head tighter, we're getting the immediacy of that tension on the reso, which generates a little bit more high end, a little more articulation, a different kind of projection that's kind of a little bit slappier, but at the same time, we're getting faster response because we're dealing with the higher tensioned head. So the feel of the stick on it is a little bit stiffer, and it lends itself to more dynamic playing, and in some cases busier playing, especially if you're playing at really low dynamics. We spend a fair amount of time here talking about, and also on the internet, dealing with people who are really into one sound and have feelings about sounds in terms of them being right, wrong, correct, incorrect, stuff like that. And one of the primary mantras here at Sounds Like a Drum is that we believe that there are no wrong sounds. It's all about context, and it's all about what you want to hear. Now, if you're predominantly a rock guy, you might not like the high-tuned, inverted intervals on these things, and that's okay. And likewise, I know people who are really into trying to get unusual, unexpected sounds out of their drums, and maybe they're loving on that, and the more traditional tom sound is not interesting to them. That's all totally fine. But what we're after here is understanding what these instruments are capable of, so that if you're interested in expanding, or if you didn't know that this is what would happen if you inverted the intervals, you get an opportunity to experiment with that, explore it. We can save you a little time. You can hear kind of what's going to happen, so you don't spend all your time trying to fiddle with it. And in the end, learn our instruments better and have more options in creative situations. Now, since we're experimenting, since we're sciencing here, we decided to do one more tuning of this nature with a really extreme interval. So I left the reso where it was in the previous example, which is up at a D. I lowered the batter from an A all the way down to an E. So we're talking about a minor seventh. It's almost an octave. They're almost an octave apart. This is maybe further than I would go if I was trying to make the drum sound like a tom, but on the other hand, I want to know what the extremes are. I want to know how far I can go. And in this kind of situation, the wideness of the interval is the thing that's going to decide more than anything else whether or not we can use these two sounds. With this one, we're going to do them back to back so you can just hear the comparison immediately. So for me, the normal lower batter side of this sounds a little bit better. The other way around, it's very much kind of a timbale situation. We're not getting much tone. We're getting a ton of attack. It inspired me to play rim shots on it, almost like it was another snare drum with the wires turned off, which, on the one hand, that's basically what it is. If we have wires turned off on a snare, it's turning it into a tom. So all of these things are valid as long as they make you happy, as long as they make the music that you're doing sound good. That about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed our experiment today. I super did. I am inspired now to try this a little bit more in music at home. And also, it's got me excited about clear heads again, which I'm excited about it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and click the notification bell so you can hear about all of our new videos. We have a lot of stuff coming out these days. There's a lot of stuff on the Patreon, other series, question and answer, anecdotes, things for days. And thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this episode, taking care of us here. Wonderful partner. We really appreciate it. And lastly, I'm betting that most people out there go for a slightly lower batter than a reso. I'm curious if you've experimented with this. I'm curious what kind of music you use it for too. I think of it as a jazz and world music thing, but it's really good for all kinds of stuff. So yeah, tell us your stories.